The first thing Olivia Hart noticed wasn't the exhausted father standing at the reception desk. It was the routing number. She had only caught a glimpse as the man unfolded a crumpled bank letter, but her heart stopped anyway. The account number printed beneath it ended with 8147. She knew that number. Not because she recognized the man. Not because she handled payroll. But because she'd spent nearly a year trying to answer one question that had haunted her since her father's passing. Who had been receiving $1 million every single month from her father's private account? And why had he hidden it from everyone, including her? Olivia Hart wasn't the kind of CEO who hid behind polished office doors. At 36, she led Hart Meridian Properties, one of the largest commercial real estate companies in Chicago. Employees often saw her walking the halls with coffee in hand, asking about families instead of quarterly reports. That habit came from her father, Charles Hart. He had built the company with a simple philosophy. Buildings are investments. People are legacies. Charles had passed away 18 months earlier after a brief illness. The company survived. Olivia survived. But one mystery remained. While reviewing old financial records, she discovered confidential monthly wire transfers of exactly $1 million. Same amount. Same date. Same recipient. For almost 12 years. The transfers had stopped the month Charles died. Every accountant she'd hired found nothing illegal. Taxes had been paid. Documentation existed. But the recipient's identity remained protected through an unusually complex trust. Her father had never mentioned it. Not once. The man standing in her lobby certainly didn't look like someone receiving millions. His Navy maintenance uniform had faded from years of washing. His boots carried dust from construction sites. His name badge read, Ethan Brooks. Beside him stood a little girl, maybe 8 years old, clutching a backpack almost as big as she was. She leaned against him as though he'd become her whole world. Olivia wasn't trying to eavesdrop. She simply overheard the receptionist. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. We still can't process direct deposit without updated banking verification." Ethan sighed. "I know. My daughter had a school emergency yesterday. I couldn't make it before the bank closed." His voice wasn't angry. Just tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying too much responsibility for too long. Olivia stepped forward. "I'm Olivia." He nodded politely without recognizing her. "Nice to meet you. I'm actually the CEO here." His eyes widened. "Oh. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to create a problem." "You didn't." She smiled gently. "Would you mind if payroll handles this personally?" 10 minutes later they sat inside a conference room. Payroll entered Ethan's information into the system while Olivia tried to ignore the racing thoughts in her head. There it was again. The account number. Exactly the same ending she'd memorized from her father's records. Surely thousands of accounts shared those digits. Coincidences happened. Still, something felt impossible to ignore. After payroll left, Olivia hesitated. This may sound like an unusual question. Ethan looked confused. "Okay. How long have you had this bank account?" He thought for a moment. "Since I was 21. "And, was it ever opened by someone else?" His expression changed. "My dad." Olivia leaned forward. "He opened it?" "No." Ethan smiled faintly. "Actually, a man named Charles Hart helped him." The room fell completely silent. Ethan noticed her face lose color. "You knew him?" Olivia swallowed. "He was my father." Now it was Ethan's turn to stare. For several seconds neither spoke. Finally Ethan whispered. "I haven't heard his name in years." Olivia asked if he had time for coffee after work. He almost declined. Single parents rarely had extra hours. But his daughter, Lily, grinned. "Dad, I like hot chocolate." He laughed. "Guess that's a yes." At a quiet cafe nearby, Ethan began telling a story no one at Heart Meridian had ever heard. "My father, Daniel Brooks, was an electrician. He worked on one of your father's first apartment buildings almost 30 years ago. There was a terrible accident." Olivia's heart tightened. "I've never heard about an accident." Because Charles made sure no one remembered it that way. Daniel Brooks had saved 3 workers during a massive electrical fire. He entered the building repeatedly before firefighters arrived. On the final trip, part of the ceiling collapsed. Daniel survived. But severe injuries ended his career forever. The construction company's insurance fought responsibility. Medical bills piled up. Ethan was only 3 years old. His mother worked nights. Everything seemed hopeless. Then Charles Hart arrived. Personally. Not with lawyers. Not with cameras. Just himself. "He told my parents something I'll never forget," Ethan said. "You risked your future protecting people helping build mine." Charles refused to let Daniel lose his home. He paid medical bills anonymously. Helped Ethan's mother return to college. Arranged physical therapy. But Daniel never accepted charity easily. He told Charles he wanted to earn every dollar. So Charles created something. A trust. Olivia listened without interrupting. Ethan continued. "My father became an unpaid safety consultant. He reviewed every construction project your father's company started. Every report. Every blueprint. Every safety recommendation. He couldn't climb ladders anymore. But he made sure other fathers came home. Suddenly the monthly transfers made sense. Not charity. Purpose. Respect. Charles hadn't been supporting one family. He'd been honoring a promise. But... Olivia asked softly. "Why $1 million? Ethan smiled. "That wasn't for us." "What do you mean?" "My father insisted most of it goes somewhere else." Daniel Brooks had spent decades building something almost no one knew existed. Every month the trust distributed money to families of construction workers injured on job sites. Scholarships. Emergency rent. Childcare. Physical rehabilitation. College funds. Widows. Single fathers. Single mothers. Quietly. Without publicity. Without the Hart name. Without Daniel's name. Thousands of families had benefited. Very few knew where the money came from. "My dad used to say something." Ethan looked down at his coffee. "Real kindness shouldn't need applause." Olivia suddenly remembered hearing almost identical words from Charles during childhood. Only now did she understand where he'd learned them. "So, your father?" Ethan smiled sadly. "He passed away last year." "I'm sorry. He told me never to expect the payments to continue. They were tied to Charles. When Charles died, the trust ended." Olivia felt an unexpected ache. Not because of the money. Because 2 men had quietly spent decades changing lives together. And she'd never known. That evening Olivia drove home without turning on the radio. Every traffic light became another memory. Her father leaving early. Late-night phone calls. Weekend meetings she'd assumed were business. Had they all been about protecting families? She realized something painful. She had inherited his company. But perhaps not yet his vision. The next morning Olivia requested every archived document related to the Brooks Trust. Lawyers searched storage rooms. Old file cabinets. Digital backups. Finally one sealed envelope appeared. Addressed simply. For Olivia. If she ever asks. Her hands trembled. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Liv. If you're reading this, curiosity finally won. Good. There are balance sheets for businesses. Then there are balance sheets for life. Some debts can never truly be repaid. Daniel saved fathers I employed. He protected children he'd never meet. Money wasn't repayment. It was participation. He taught me that generosity works best when it keeps someone else's dignity intact. If you choose to continue this work, make it your own. Don't copy me. Listen to today's needs. Kindness should grow with each generation. Love, Dad. Olivia cried for the first time since the funeral. Not from grief alone. From understanding. Over the following months she didn't simply restart the trust. She met people. Construction workers. Teachers. Hospital social workers. Veterans. School counselors. Parents. She wanted to know where quiet kindness could make the greatest difference. One conversation kept returning to her mind. Ethan. She invited him to lunch. I'd like to ask you something. He smiled nervously. I hope this isn't about becoming management. She laughed. No. I'd like you to help lead a new foundation. His smile disappeared. I fix elevators. You understand something many executives don't. People. Ethan hesitated. I don't have a business degree. My father didn't either. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were plans for the Builders Forward Foundation. Not a memorial. Not a publicity campaign. A practical organization helping families facing sudden financial hardship after workplace injuries, while also funding safety education to prevent future tragedies. I don't want someone who knows spreadsheets. Olivia said quietly. I want someone who knows what hope feels like when someone shows up. Months later the foundation held its first community event. No celebrities attended. No television cameras. Just families sharing stories over picnic tables in a neighborhood park. Children laughed. Retired workers exchanged memories. Scholarship recipients met the donors who preferred to remain anonymous. Lily ran across the grass carrying homemade lemonade. She stopped beside Olivia. Can I ask you something? Of course. Were your dad and my grandpa best friends? Olivia smiled. I think. They became family without sharing the same last name. Lily nodded thoughtfully. I like that better. As sunset painted the sky orange, Ethan stood quietly beside Olivia. You know. My father always wondered if Charles believed he'd done enough. Olivia looked toward dozens of families enjoying the evening together. What do you think? Ethan smiled. I think he'd be happy knowing you didn't inherit his answers. You inherited his questions. Years later employees at Heart Meridian noticed something unusual. Whenever someone experienced a family emergency, unexpected hardship, or needed flexible time to care for loved ones, the company responded with compassion instead of suspicion. Those policies became part of the culture. Not because they improved profits. Though eventually they did. Because people remembered how they were treated. Construction sites became safer. Scholarships expanded. Communities grew stronger. And every year, during the foundation's anniversary gathering, Olivia would read one sentence from her father's letter aloud. Kindness should grow with each generation. It became more than a slogan. It became a promise. Not just to continue someone else's legacy, but to create one worthy of passing on. Because the greatest gifts are rarely measured by the size of a bank transfer. They're measured by the number of lives that quietly become brighter because someone chose compassion over recognition, generosity over credit, and people over pride.